Oh, we're live. This is Erin Knight with Engineering Radiance, creator of the Migraine Freedom Program, and I have a special guest on today, naturopathic physician, Dr. Nina Manipon from Connecticut and New Jersey. Is that right? Or is one?
That's correct. Yeah.
Both. Okay. We are kicking off a series of talks, interviews, and education for Migraine Awareness Month. So June is Migraine Awareness Month. Today is June 3rd, so this is the first in a series. And Dr. Nina agreed to join me to share a little bit about what's working for her patients. Because for me, most important thing about Migraine Awareness Month is just to help spread the word about things that are working, what options people do have. I know there's lots of drug companies spending billions of dollars on drug advertising, and sometimes we forget there's lots of holistic and natural alternatives out there too that don't get as much attention. So I wanted to bring on people that are having success with more root cause solutions, more foundational things to do with lifestyle and healthy living, and help people understand what those are and what those options are. So if you're watching live, you have some questions, by all means, join the conversation. Let us know what's on your mind, what questions you have. Otherwise, we'll just talk a little bit about your experience and your practice and how you help people with migraines, because I understand that's like big thing that you see coming into your office.
I do, yes. So my practice as a naturopathic physician is really making sure that I get to the root cause of what's causing the migraines or inflammation. And oftentimes patients will come in and it's just like one of the lists of their chief concerns. It's usually like, oh, okay, well, I have this going, this. Oh, did I tell you I have really terrible migraines? I'm like, oh, that's important to list. And for me, it's figuring out, when did they start, what caused them, and then really figuring out when are they happening. And most patients can remember, is it worse during their periods? Does it just come on suddenly? And if somebody is a little bit newer to me, I'll ask them to keep like a migraine diary. Mm-hmm. But most people have been, suffering with them for years. So they know exactly what the triggers may be, what foods may cause it, things like that. Or some may just be new to understanding their body better. And then hopefully if we can figure out what those triggers are, really be able to minimize the migraines, then hopefully not have them long-term.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned some more like deeper level things you could do beyond measuring or monitoring triggers and things like that, like looking for sources of inflammation, like food sensitivities.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's just one of them. Typically what I'll do is a food intolerance. And so what makes a food intolerance a little bit different is that these are foods that will not change. So in my practice, I used to start with food sensitivities, and I still do them every once in a while, but it really depends on what the patient's most comfortable doing, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes patients are like, you should be avoiding this food, indefinitely. They don't exactly respond well to that. But what I tell them is that food sensitivities, patients get really great results doing them. It's just a matter of, giving the proper time. So especially, I think a big term that's heard quite a bit is, leaky gut. Inflammation, starting with the gut first. And sometimes if you remove those food sensitivities for a little bit, whether that's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and then you try to reintroduce those foods again, you can see if there may be an IgG reaction or if they're reacting really well. So, but sometimes also it's that if we were to retest again, the foods that you were avoiding now come back up, or vice versa. And so sometimes what I'll tell patients is, especially with food intolerance, let's give it really 2 weeks. See how that affects your body. And from then on, go ahead and reintroduce a little bit of it and let me know if you notice a difference. And right away, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't believe you. I didn't realize it. But now I know this is definitely it. And so I think that's a little bit more realistic for them, because they can certainly see, wow, maybe this is a correlation. Like one of my patients, she's had migraines for years, ever since she was really little. And one of the things that we realized is that she had been in a really bad car accident when she was young, to the point where her head actually went through the windshield. And she had tried other things, chiropractic work, kind of like a food elimination. But when she really stayed away from her food intolerances, she did notice that dairy did contribute to some of that trigger for her and for her migraines.
I'm really glad you mentioned that as a specific example, because a lot of times people can, remember like a physical trauma like that, a car
Mhm.
accident or something else. A lot of times it is car accidents. And then they think that the only problem is structural, but it turns out a lot of times to actually get better from that, to let your body heal from that, we have to look at other sources of inflammation, whether it's food sensitivities or heavy metals or things like that. So yeah, it's true for me. So I like to talk about that too. But I feel like that's a common misconception where people think like, okay, it's, going to the chiropractor helps, I'm just going to go to the chiropractor for the rest of my life, where you actually have to work a little bit deeper to help your body hold those alignments and things like that.
I think that, and there are lots, and so patients are so used to taking like these heavy duty medications, like the sumatriptans out there, and it's like, what's the long-term effects of that? Do you really want to take that? And sometimes patients will say, if I can catch it right at the beginning, I'm okay. But if they wait a little bit too long, forget it. They can be out for days, and that's just not the type of life you want to live, to have to cancel events or not be able to go to things that you really, be with family and friends. So it's totally understandable.
You mentioned working with people's nutrient deficiencies has helped too. So what does that look like for you? Do you just go after the typical culprits, or do you do some testing for that?
A couple of things. Sometimes I'll test. Oftentimes I do run a pretty extensive battery of tests, just because I really like to see the whole picture. So really depending on what the patients are open to doing. So what I'll do is check their RBC, their red blood cell magnesium levels. And that sometimes is a really good way to help me look and see. I'll also look at their B vitamins, their B12, their folate, B6, B3, all those different components. And then from there can really tell, okay, your B12 is a little bit low, or your magnesium is really low. I'll always check the thyroid too. You just never know where things can be coming in, because sometimes what other medical doctors or other doctors may think is normal, we could usually catch before they get to that point.
Talk about like optimal range versus just average.
Right. So it's like patients will come in like, oh, my thyroid's fine. And I'll say, did you get your lab work? And they're like, oh, my doctor said it was fine. I'm like, well, I'd really appreciate it if you just get it. And then their thyroid will be like a 4.0. I'm like, oh my goodness, we need to work on this. Like soon, like really soon. And I usually tell them the range that I like. I like it under 2.5, but as close to 1 as possible. And I'll always check nutrient levels too, like zinc, selenium, things like that. Sometimes I'll even do a hair analysis. It really just depends on the patient and what their symptoms may be.
But hopefully people listening can hear there's a lot of other things to look at. I'm looking here. We got a question from Noreen.
Oh, sure.
What are your thoughts on underactive thyroid and migraines? She's had both for 36 years, and they kind of have gone hand in hand. So have you seen positive results just when somebody has underactive thyroid that's been, dismissed for years and years? When you're correcting that, does that make a big difference for?
I think it does. I think so. Because, when you think about migraines, you have to think about, what are just some of the inflammatory responses, and that your thyroid is really your master gland. Who knew something so little that's like right here and it could convert it to here can make such a big difference, in your life. And so oftentimes when we are able to tweak the thyroid, and I'm in the state of Connecticut. So here as a naturopathic physician, I don't have prescription rights. It doesn't mean I don't know how to prescribe, but I am able to find other ways to support the thyroid, whether that's using herbs or supplementation, and really just the basics oftentimes. Like usually I'll look at, like I was saying, zinc and selenium. Those are two big things. Iodine is really important for the thyroid. So once I see that we can get the nutrients back into balance for the body, so many things change. I mean, think about like when patients come in with like very low vitamin D levels, and you just make that little tweak, and even iron, the changes it can make in someone's life are pretty remarkable.
Okay. So if somebody's been chasing just migraines for a long time, maybe it's time to step back and look at what else is going on in your body. Where are things out of balance? What other systems are off, and how can that provide a clue about the underlying issues that could help with that? Absolutely. And migraines. More root cause approach.
Yeah, it's really important to take a whole approach, because not only that, but it's like, okay, well, how are you managing your stress? How are you eating? There's so much to it. And so what I always tell patients in my practice, regardless of what you come in with, we will always start with diet and nutrition first, because if you're going to continue, and, I understand we live in a very fast paced environment, but if you're going to continue to grab like fast food and those types of things, this may not be the best fit for you, or maybe you're not quite ready just yet, but that's okay. Let's just take baby steps and just make small changes here and there and then build upon that.
Have to start somewhere, right?
Right, exactly.
So any step in the right direction is only going to help us in the long term. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, where can people learn more about you? Shall we put your website here just in the comments for people?
Sure.
Okay.
I can give you my website. It's Revitalize. That's REVITLIZEWC.com. And it stands for RevitalizeWellnessCenter.com.
Okay, great. I appreciate you coming on to talk with me. Thank you guys for listening. If you're watching the replay or anything like that, we'll be doing lots more of these little talks throughout the month. Check out the events on my Facebook page. If you go on I think it's on the left under events, I'll list out what's coming up. Got some more classes. A very special event coming up on June 21st is I'm hosting a class with a doctor who prescribes cannabis for migraines, which is kind of like new topic for me. I'll be learning alongside with everybody, but she's going to actually go into what we need to know about this and answer a lot of questions for people because it's kind of a hot topic. So I'm excited about that. Everybody check out just events to see what's coming up and let me know what you're interested in. What would help you this month for Migraine Awareness Month the most. So thank you for listening and thank you for being my guest. And
thanks so much, Erin. I appreciate it.
We'll talk soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.